Most of what you're seeing in this video was filmed about 2 weeks ago and kind of led me down a completely different rabbit hole altogether because of something that we like to call scope creep. But stick around because there are some very interesting things that I found out with this whole idea.
2 weeks earlier.
Here's the deal. We all know how underwhelming this new Intel platform is for gaming. What I wanted to know was, does this new Intel platform suck, or more specifically, the Core Ultra 9 285K suck for 4K gaming, not 1080p and 1440p, because I personally game at 4K only. So I'm gonna build myself a gaming PC, use it for the next week so I can find out, so you don't have to waste your own money. So let's do a build thing. However, the only issue with this is I don't have the right case, so we need to go case shopping.
This video is brought to you by Gigabyte and Aorus and their new lineup of X870 and Z890 motherboards that support both the Intel Core 2 Ultra series processors and the new AMD Ryzen 9000 series processors. Both chipsets offer robust and efficient power delivery and cooling across the various models, especially with the new King, the AMD Ryzen 7 9800X3D. All boards across the range feature auto overclocking with AI-powered software for ease of use to help you squeeze every last megahertz of performance from your unlocked CPUs. All of these X870 and Z890 boards feature options like Wi-Fi 7, 10 gigabit Ethernet, Thunderbolt 4, and plenty of USB ports with toolless M.2 slots. The whole range of new Gigabyte and Aorus X870 and Z890 motherboards are available from your favourite online retailers right now. And if you're in Australia or New Zealand, Aorus will throw in a 1TB Gen 4 SSD with eligible motherboard models. For more info, check out the links in the video description.
We need to make a little trip to Scorptech to pick up an A3 MATX. We're gonna grab a white one. You might have noticed that I'm driving a different car. I've decided to steal Claire's car for this trip and not the RS3. We've actually got two cars. We've got a little Audi A1, yeah, and this is Claire's little car. I like it. It's cool. It's it's not very fast. It's like a 1 litre 3-cylinder turbo thing. I like it. It's cool. It's just slow. Look at the speedo. I couldn't even get it up to 50 kilometers, not miles, guys. I'm not doing an MKBHD. Case acquired. It's in the back seat. We should probably go home now and see what the deal is with this 285K. All right, Claire? Right? Yep. Right?
Let's go home.
We want to go home? Are you sure?
It's too hot to be outside today.
You sure we should go home?
What's the temperature? It's 30 degrees.
30 degrees. It's warm, but are you sure we should go home? I got a better idea. Look at this. We came here for the first time the other week and it was delightful. Leon Lee, A3 MATX. Very simple reason why I picked this case. My current gaming PC is already in this case, so while I'm testing this for the next week or so, I want to be able to just unplug my system and then this one can replace it in its place. And because we have never used a white A3 MATX, I decided to buy one, so I had one on hand because I just really love this case. MATX for me is kind of the perfect form factor at the moment. It's got all of the really good things of an ATX board, but it's smaller. And when you have higher end boards, like this Z890 board, it makes for the perfect premise for a video just like this one. There are some very interesting MATX boards for this new Intel platform. Whether or not this new platform is your cup of tea is still up for debate, but for me, for 4K gaming, I want to know what the story is. Obviously, I am not replacing my current 7800X3D based gaming PC because that thing is absolutely freaking insane. What I'm doing is building a top-end current gen Intel system with the 4090 to see what the story is. See guys, I'm not kidding. I did go out and buy this case. It's brand new. It's got like everything still attached to the inside. I got to cut that all out now too. When you're installing the motherboard in the A3 MATX, there is a center peg, so the board will be held up if you decide to be like me and roll the dice and build your PC standing up. So you'll see, the board just stays in there. I love that cases basically all do that now. As for the specs of what I've chosen for this system, it's kind of similar to what I'm running with my AMD system. So I've got 32 gigs of memory. However, This is 32 gigs of CU-DIMM memory, so the really fast stuff for this new Intel platform. Got the Intel Core Ultra 9 285K, because that's the top dog for Intel right now, and I want to know what the deal is. I just have to know. I play 4K games, give me the best, right? For storage, I've got an MP600 LPX. This is a Gen 4 PCIe NVMe M.2 drive, 2 terabytes in total, and it's going to be more than enough for whatever I need to do with this system. Gonna skip a few steps here. Most of you guys out there know how to build PCs. If you're interested in a full step-by-step PC build guide video, please let us know. It's something that we haven't really done before on the channel because everyone else has done a million of them, but I'm sure there's a lot of things that people don't talk about that I could help you guys with, because I've been doing this almost longer than anybody else. And that's not a flex, that's just a fact. I'm an old man who wears a backwards cap. One thing I recommend with the A3 MATX is plugging all of your EPS cables in before you put your power supply in and your cooler, because routing cables later can be a bit tricky because the top of the case is not removable. It's one of the bits of feedback I had for Leon Lee with this case was, I wish they'd made a removable bracket, but I get why they didn't do it, because it makes it a bit easier for the rigidity of the case if there's no points of failure. Liquid coolers in the A3 MATX can be a little bit tricky, so I'll show you the easiest way to do it. Now, I recommend not having the power supply in the case at all. It's one of the last things to do in the order for building in this case, right? And the reason why we had the EPS power cables connected first is you're about to see. Now, I'd recommend if you're using a 360mm liquid cooler on the top of the case to load it in through the front of the case. And it does take a little bit of massaging to get this in, but as you're about to see, it does go in. And we're just going to have to, you're gonna have to trust me on this one, guys. All right, so what you wanna do is kind of push it up and in and then all the way back. Give it a little bit of love, and we've got it into place. Full thermal paste application for these new Intel chips. The hotspot is kind of on the side of the chip, but that doesn't take away from where you should be applying thermal paste because the whole IHS needs to be covered. So for these Intel chips, like the previous generations, a nice generous strip down the middle should be more than enough. Too little, bad. More than enough or too much, fine. All gravy, baby. All right, party people, now's a good time to get your GPU installed. So that's what we're going to do because it allows us to find ways to route the rest of the cables around the GPU and the power supply and all the other stuff. And make sure we don't get anything hitting the fans. I'm not putting in fans underneath the GPU.
I did put fans in.
I'm not caring about cable management or any of that kind of stuff.
But I do care.
We're just getting everything in here and making sure it all works.
It does work.
For a week.
It was more like 2 weeks.
I'll let you know what the deal is with this system when I find out what the whole story is. So it's 2 weeks later, and I wanted to show you guys what the performance was like using the built-in Black Ops 6 benchmark, because again, this is the game that I've been playing, and I tend to main COD, and that's usually what I build my gaming PCs around, because yeah, even this game here, I've got 120 hours in or something really stupid already. But let's take a look at what that looks like. Be aware though, we are using upscaling for some of the testing here. As far as the VRAM targets in Call of Duty, there are a few interesting ways to play around with this, but I've found that between 60 to 75%, especially for Black Ops 6, is the sweet spot. So I did a little bit of testing on both of these systems to find the optimal VRAM target, and anywhere between 60 and 75 was fine. Even though it technically uses all of the VRAM at 60%, it does not change the performance whatsoever. What you'll find with some of the testing as well is, because I've used this 7800 X3D PC a whole lot more, I have a lot of my personal stuff on here, and there's a lot more running as background tasks, which means it's using more RAM, yet you'll see that it doesn't matter. It really, really doesn't matter. All right, let's start off with DLSS quality. You can see all of the other settings here. Everything is completely maxed out in game settings other than the DLSS setting in the game. You can see both RTX 4090s and similar specs here. Alright, I'm going to do the entire benchmark run with some telemetry on your screen so you can kind of get an idea of what's happening. Now, I don't have the exact same telemetry on both systems because when I was setting it up on the Intel system, I forgot what I had set up on my AMD system. So this is just going to have to do to give you an idea of what is going on here. Okay, there's a couple results here to go through. So first of all, on the left, we've got the Ryzen 7 7800X3D result, and the Intel Core Ultra 9 result is on the right-hand side. With DLSS set to quality, the 7800X3D is about 3.5% faster. Well, that is with the global result. As for the other results, for average frames per second with CPU FPS, the gap opens up quite a bit, with it being about 32% difference in favor of the 7800X3D, and overall, just a much snappier result from the 7800X3D all around. There is not one number here that is higher for the Intel chip. Alright, let's run this again with DLSS set to performance. This is the mode that I actually use when playing Call of Duty Black Ops 6. You can see here both DLSS, the render scale is at 1080p, so about 50% render scale. And this is good because with DLSS you get pretty good visuals in performance mode, and the frame rate is going to be higher because it's kind of 1080p but not. Once again, I'm showing you the entire benchmark run so you can have a look at the telemetry. For the average global frame rate, the 7800X3D is about 6% faster on average. If we look at the CPU frame rate, that opens up to a 36.5% difference with performance, which is quite large. Again, there's not a single number here that is in favor of the Core Ultra 9 285K. If we look at the bottleneck percentage here, we've got a 10% bottleneck on the 285K, so there you go. Finally, here's something I thought was worth running, was every setting set to max settings, the way that I usually play, but no upscaling. Nothing at all. Again, we're running everything with the telemetry on so you can get an idea of what's happening play by play with the benchmark in real time. As for the difference between these CPUs for the average frame rate, you're looking at about a 3% difference. Again, actually kind of closer to 4%, but you know, we'll round it down just to make everybody happy. And the difference in CPU frame rate is around about 23% in favor of the 7800X3D. Again, all round, the 7800X3D is the better CPU for 4K gaming. Well, in regards to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 anyway, because once again, this is the game that I play the most, and that's all I really care about. After going through a few 4K testing scenarios and some settings that I would typically use for Black Ops 6, it's kind of interesting to find that even though the results they're close in some regards, what it equates to is a gaming experience. And it sounds so weird because the numbers are so close, but on the Intel system, something that you can't measure like that is the input lag. It felt like there was more input lag, but it felt like input was smoother, but with more latency, if that makes sense. Whereas the AMD system feels a bit tighter and a bit snappier, and then there's less input lag. This feels smooth, this feels more responsive. It's kind of like using a different turbo for each car. But the real question is, does it suck to game on the 285K? It sucks. It just doesn't feel good. And that's the thing with gaming, right? Performance is one thing, but if I'm losing gunfights in Warzone and in multiplayer in COD because of this system, then it sucks. And it's simple as that. And this is a highly subjective video. The reality for builds like this is it's pretty GPU bound, but when we get into the territory, when we're using upscaling like DLSS, which relies a bit more on the CPU because it brings the render resolution down, then the 7800X3D will win every single day of the week. And to be honest, the 9800X3D would be even better and would pull much further ahead than this even. Which just goes to show that Intel didn't really design these for gaming at all. Even with gaming, with no upscaling whatsoever, 7800X3D is faster. So there it is. It does somewhat suck from a certain point of view. Right? I'm trying to sit on the fence here with this one because still it's kind of hard to say, but I didn't like my experience with it, and it wasn't as stable, and it just wasn't good. It wasn't good. Which leads into, how has scope creep got anything to do with this? Well, I decided to build a new gaming PC with the 7800X3D, but I figured out a way to now rack mount my gaming PC on the other side of the office. So make sure you stay tuned for that because I've done all the testing and it works. But yeah, stick around for that because that one will probably come out next year. When? Well, after I show you guys my new 2025 office because I've been working on it in secret and it looks freaking awesome. That's it. What a weird video. Can't believe it took me 2 weeks to figure out that I hated this thing. I just don't like it. It's not fun. It's really not fun to game on. I know I'm being super duper picky and whatnot, but because it's my own system, I'm being as picky as possible. 7800X3D is the better choice. I mean, if you can get one.